Hey everybody, Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com. I am being joined by Jeff Meacham. Wasn't expecting to do a video like this today, but we had some breaking news this morning, literally right when it got light outside. I mean, I was barely awake at 6 a.m. and I get all these alerts about WWE's big announcement. Not only is Smackdown moving live on Tuesday nights, but also there will be a new brand extension with exclusive rosters on Raw and Smackdown. Jeff, what is your overall opinion on today's breaking news story?
About freaking time. I mean, let's be honest. You and I have been calling for this for pretty much every Talk Wrestling and every No DQ&A video since I returned to NoDQ.com 2 years ago. We've been talking about the fact that the roster is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's getting more talent from NXT, and there's more talent coming from the Indies, and we're not seeing enough of all the talent on both shows because they're focusing on the quote-unquote A storylines for each superstar. So, and the fact that they cut, however many it was, 8 people last week, they've lost 2 more this week, if you count an announcer and a wrestler, and this is the time to split the brands up again and really focus on getting everybody their deserved TV time.
Well, yeah, this is something that has been rumored for several months now. Ever since Shane came back, there's been the speculation about there being another brand split. And with all the injured stars coming back, plus all the guys coming up from NXT, the roster is currently one of the best that WWE has ever had, arguably. There's a lot of people, and now seems to be the right time to make this change. And also with ratings going down, this is something to definitely shake things up again and get people talking about WWE, and it opens up a lot of different possibilities. The thing that I find bizarre is that I was expecting some sort of storyline to lead up to this rather than it just be announced randomly. I figured that Shane and Stephanie would have a falling out, and that would lead to Vince announcing that there needs to be a new brand extension to keep Shane and Stephanie separate and have them compete against each other. So that I find a little bit strange that this was just done completely out of the blue, totally random. What do you think about that?
Well, that's how it was done last time. If you recall, WWF co-owners Vince McMahon and Ric Flair were having trouble getting along and keeping the peace. So Linda McMahon and the board of directors decided to split the company up.
Yeah.
And that was a great storyline, and it worked very well for a very long time. But as the roster, remained the same, and we saw the same people every week, even on both shows, and then they were doing all the cross promotion, the brand extension died, and it died a very slow, painful, monotonous, boring death.
Right.
With the roster the way it is now, with Shane and Stephanie sort of invigorating the storyline in terms of their on-screen characters, maybe we'll see this brand extension work. What I find very interesting about all of this is that SmackDown is now going live each and every week on Tuesday, and for at least part of the show, they'll be in competition, quote unquote, with Impact.
Yeah, that is definitely something that's very interesting. Maybe TNA is going to switch nights again. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with that. But I definitely feel that SmackDown going live on Tuesdays is the right decision if this is going to work, because it's going to instantly make SmackDown as important as Raw. And now that it's going to be live every week, it's going to be must-see TV again. And yeah, with Raw being 3 hours, you have so much television now, and when you have the same guys on both shows every week, the characters get stale even faster. And by doing the brand extension, I talked about this on my videos, that by doing the brand extension again, you're only going to see Roman Reigns once a week now instead of twice a week. And I think that's definitely better for keeping the characters fresh and not having things get stale as quickly. What do you think about that?
Well, but do you think as world champion, he'll be on both shows like they did with the original brand extension?
Well, that's another interesting point now. Will WWE keep one champion on both shows, or will the title split again? What do you think is the way to go here?
I personally think that if you're going to have one WWE, whether it's 2 shows, Raw and SmackDown, it's still one WWE. And I felt from the beginning that having one world champion compete on both shows, but split his time with Raw, one month with Raw, one month SmackDown leading into the pay-per-view. That way he was focusing on the number one contender, and he was that we're not seeing Roman Reigns for 5 hours, 2 nights a week. That we get Roman Reigns against, let's say, Roman against Cesaro on Raw, going into, or no, Roman against Seth Rollins on Raw, going to Money in the Bank, and then going to Battleground, he faces, let's say, The Miz on SmackDown or something. That way he stays on one show to face that one top guy he's dealing with for that month. I would definitely put the Intercontinental title and U.S. Championships on separate shows.
Right.
And I would keep the tag team and the women's championship intact.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would agree with you about the world title. I think it would be better to just have one champion, one undisputed champion, one guy who is clearly the top guy, the guy, whatever you want to call it. I think it elevates the world title more and makes it more prestigious by having one champion, and everybody has something to fight for. And if they become champion, they can be on both shows. But yeah, I remember that was really the original idea they had with the brand extension, where the champion would at one pay-per-view face somebody from Raw, and then the next pay-per-view face somebody from SmackDown. So that's possibly something that they could do again with that title. And I do agree with you about the US title and the IC title being on separate shows, but then like the WWE World title, keeping the women's title and the tag team titles as just their own titles and not separating them again, and having a tag team title on Raw and a tag team title on SmackDown. I definitely agree with you on that.
Well, because let's be honest, as deep as the roster is, there's not enough stable, set, quality tag teams to justify a split.
Right. Well, there are a lot of tag teams. I just feel, like with the world title, it would be more prestigious if the tag team titles were just one set of tag team titles instead of 2. And since you already have the
problem is,
yeah, go ahead.
Because the problem is, if they split the tag team out and split the women's title up, we're going to get the Divas title back. We're going to get some other horrible-looking tag team title back. We don't want any of that mess.
Yeah, I mean, with the IC title and the US title, they're basically the same thing anyways. It's the mid-card workhorse title, whatever you want to call it. So that would be perfectly fine, having the US title on one show and the IC title on another show. I think that would work out very nicely, and there's no need to do anything else with splitting titles or anything like that. And maybe eventually you could introduce another title, maybe do a cruiserweight title. They're doing the cruiserweight series in NXT. Maybe they could introduce a cruiserweight title, or introduce another hardcore title, or maybe make an entirely new championship for a show. That's also a possibility as well. I prefer that over splitting the tag titles or splitting the women's title.
Definitely agree with you on that one. They have enough championships right now, but like you said, they could bring back the hardcore, or could introduce a new cruiserweight championship to go with the Cruiserweight Classic that's coming out this summer. The thing. Watching Star Trek, listening to Leonard Nimoy as Spock, there are always possibilities.
Yeah. Now let's talk about another topic here. Who's going to be on what shows? One would think that John Cena and Roman Reigns are going to be kept separate, and maybe eventually they could have a match. One of the other benefits to doing this brand extension, if you do it right, you can build up to these interpromotional matches. You could eventually build up to a John Cena versus Roman Reigns, keep them separate for a while, and then maybe for WrestleMania, you have the 2 of them go at it. So who do you think is best being on Raw and SmackDown, and who do you think is best being kept separate at this point from each other?
Oh, golly. Like you said, Roman and Cena should definitely be kept separate, because that's the money match. And on a Facebook post I saw last night or this morning, whatever it was, they're going to meet at WrestleMania, and they're going to be kicking out at 2 for at least 10 years. So, they'll have that match to build on.
Right.
But, should have different tag teams on both shows. Like, I would say put Enzo and Cass on Raw. I would say put the Vaudevillains on SmackDown. I would say put the Dudleys on Raw because that's the marquee show and they're a marquee team, even though they're now pretty much. But I would do my best, whatever I did as I've been McMahon, to make sure I put marquee talent on both shows and don't have SmackDown become what it was when Paul Heyman was there. Now, granted, it was a great show, but it was more of a workhorse show. There was no real marquee stars. They had to build from scratch.
Yeah, and I think it would be totally fine for John Cena to be on SmackDown. That way he can still be the top guy, and that gives SmackDown instant credibility and makes it a must-see show. You could put Reigns on SmackDown, but I think that it would be better to have Cena be on SmackDown. And with the tag team titles and the tag team division, I mean, you would have to have tag teams on both shows since there might be exclusive SmackDown house shows, and you're going to need tag team matches. So it wouldn't make sense to have all the tag teams on Raw, for example. So I'm trying to think of some of the other people. I mean, anybody who has similar roles, they should be kept separate, like Cena and Reigns. They're both similar in their roles. They're the superhero. They should be kept separate. And maybe guys like Cesaro and Sami Zayn, the baby faces that are really popular with the internet, they should be kept on separate shows, just so you have a variety and you're keeping these guys separate.
Once we get through Money in the Bank, since that's before the brand extension, I would keep Zayn and Owens on a separate show on each other across the brand, if you will. That way, when they come back together at SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Rumble, or Mania, it really means something.
Yeah, well, they could definitely wrap up this whole Owens and Zayn feud by separating them, but they can do one last match to end the feud once and for all, at least for now, and then have them go their separate ways, and then maybe one day have them feud again.
Yeah, I would definitely the split of the League of Nations and have those three guys not be all on the same show.
Yeah, absolutely. This way you can get those guys separate and then have them go off and do their own thing.
Yeah. I would probably have Seth wherever Roman is, whether he's champion or not.
Maybe keep Dean with them too, so you still have that Shield triple threat option.
Yeah. I would keep the Shield on the same show and Cena on the opposite show.
Yeah. I'm guessing that Raw will continue to still be the main show since it's 3 hours and it has the history behind it. So I'm guessing you'll have more guys on Raw than SmackDown, obviously, since SmackDown's only 2 hours. But definitely Cena, and maybe put some of the more popular guys like AJ Styles on SmackDown, the guys that will give you a reason to tune into SmackDown. Put them on there and make SmackDown like it used to be back in 2002, where you knew you were going to get a lot of great wrestling action, but also you have the star power with somebody like John Cena.
Exactly. As far as the women go, I would definitely try to put as much talent on both sides and not just stack Raw or stack SmackDown, because again, you need a viable competitor on both shows to challenge Charlotte. The problem is, according to the list I'm seeing, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 women who are currently injured or inactive. Yeah,
for now, but I mean, a lot of them are going to be coming back soon, and that is a lot of the reasoning to doing this is that you're going to have all these injured people coming back soon, and then your roster is going to get very bloated. Talking about the women's division, and we were talking about titles earlier, maybe on SmackDown you could have a female tag team championship on that show, and then you have something on SmackDown with the women's division with them fighting for the tag team titles. What do you think about that?
I have been very against a women's tag team championship, and that's been very surprising for me to think that, because I'm usually all for women's anything because I love the women's division. I just don't think there's enough, even when all the girls come back, I don't think there's enough real solid tag teams to make a women's tag team division.
Right. And, with WWE and the cruiserweights, they're doing that whole thing. So they're going to have a lot of cruiserweight athletes at their disposal, so they could possibly do a cruiserweight division on the main roster and have a championship. You would think if there were any plans to do like a female tag team division, that they would start doing that in NXT first and maybe do something similar to what they're doing with the cruiserweight tournament, doing like a women's tag team tournament, and then they can start bringing up some of the female tag teams and then starting a division at that point.
Yeah, because, at one point you had enough girls in that triple threat feud where you could have whatever it was, 4 teams right there in that feud by itself.
Right.
You had 9 girls.
Yeah. So.
And now it's not the case.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need some more women if they're going to do anything like that with a tag team division. Now, one more thing I wanted to mention here is the idea of a general manager. Do you think that WWE should just have Shane and Stephanie as the respective general managers, or should they bring back other people like Eric Bischoff, or should they have somebody new come in as a general manager? What are your thoughts on that?
I like the idea of Shane and Stephanie competing because they've always been competitive as siblings. They always have. And Stephanie was, by and large, SmackDown's best general manager. On either brand again, it would be awesome to see. And I think those two competing, we don't need Bischoff back. Bischoff has a desire to come back anyway on a full-time basis. Right. We don't need Teddy Long because I'm sick of him. We don't need anybody but the McMahons to run WWE.
You're not a fan of tag team matches?
I'm not a fan of Teddy Long making every single match a tag team match.
Or somebody going one-on-one with The Undertaker.
That's right. One-on-one.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's best to just have Shane and Stephanie being the general managers. And, possibly one reason why WWE's not doing a storyline with Shane and Stephanie going at it and having this friction is maybe the fact that Stephanie has a book coming out soon and she's essentially a babyface right now, and maybe WWE just decided to keep Stephanie as a babyface and not have her play a heel character anymore, and they just decided to drop the whole idea of them having a falling out, and that's why they're doing a brand extension. And they're just going to do a brand extension because of the fact that NXT is on the rise and all these injured stars are coming back. That's their reasoning for bringing back the brand extension, which I'm fine with. I'm just looking forward to this now because it gives us a reason to tune into SmackDown now. I've barely been following the shows. I do DVR SmackDown and I watch through it. Sometimes I'll just watch the clips on YouTube. But now the fact that SmackDown's live again and it's going to be live on a full-time basis instead of just every now and then, that is huge. That is definitely going to give SmackDown some instant credibility and make it more worth watching.
Well, let me ask you this. This kind of ties into this.
Yeah.
There's been reports on NoDQ and other websites that they were going to offer a premium subscription service on the network, WWE Network, where that if you paid a certain amount of money more, you would get next day replays of Raw and SmackDown like Hulu does. Right. Would you be interested in doing something like that, even though we basically see both shows by Wednesday night, or does this brand extension totally kill that idea?
Well, the thing is, you can already get Raw on Hulu the next day. It's a 90-minute version, and there's going to be 2-hour condensed versions of Raw airing on Sci-Fi. So I'm not really sure that would work. I'm not sure if there would be enough people willing to pay $14.99 for that. I would consider it at least if it was the next day that they had Raw and SmackDown. But the thing is, it's all about watching it live. That's what really gives you the incentive to tune in, is to watch it as it's happening, because you never know what's going to happen on a live show. It's not that special when you're watching it on tape delay. I I try to watch Raw live as much as possible just because I want to be watching it as it's happening rather than watching it on tape delay. That's just my opinion on it. I think the shows are better watching live than watching taped.
Oh, I agree with that. Don't get me wrong. It's because we have one here in the main room here, and then I don't have a DVR in my own room. So for me, DVRing Raw while we're trying to watch or DVR some other show on broadcast television makes it hard. It takes a DVR space, and 3 hours of high definition TV is a huge block of space. So it's hard to watch Monday night. I gotta watch Tuesday while Dylan's in school, or Wednesday or whatever. And there's just not enough hours in the day to sit down and just, okay, here we go, 3 hours. Let's do this.
It depends on the person.
Hard. So for me, on demand would be beneficial for me. But I do agree. I'd rather watch it live.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on each person and their own situation. But yeah, I definitely feel that being live, it makes the shows more exciting. And I think that everybody puts in more effort when it's live because, like Steve Austin said, there's no second take. You only have one shot at it, and you have to get it right the first time. And I think that motivates everybody more to really go out there and put on their best performances.
Yep, agreed.
All right, so is there anything else you wanted to add? Any other thoughts you had about this brand extension, or did we pretty much cover everything at this point?
I'm just curious. I'm mainly curious at this point how the rest of the wrestling business is going to respond, because now the two top brands in wrestling, besides NXT, of course, are going to be live broadcast. You're going to have 5 hours of straight live TV pretty much from back-to-back days. And it's going to be interesting to see how TNA responds, how Ring of Honor respond, and how they all try to clamor around, okay, if I'm an indie talent, I'm going to try to figure out how I'm going to get myself into NXT and by proxy into Raw and SmackDown now, and which brand I'll be on, which brand I'll be able to showcase better on.
Right.
It's a very exciting time, not only to be a wrestler or, a sports entertainer, but once again, finally, it's fun to be a fan again.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely something to look forward to. As far as TNA goes, I'm not sure what they're going to do exactly. I mean, to be fair, their viewership is so low, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. I think they'll still be able to retain their viewership despite SmackDown being on Tuesday nights. So, I mean, they could very well just stay on Tuesdays. There's always a chance they'll move again, but that's just so embarrassing to move yet again. I mean, what would this be, like the third or fourth time now that they've moved because SmackDown changed nights?
I'm not sure. This would be the third or fourth move since they left Spike.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous now. Period. So for them to move yet again, I would say probably just stay on Tuesdays. Do what you're doing. I think that they have their audience. They have their core fan base that are going to watch no matter what. I mean, anybody who's watching TNA at this point, I mean, they are very dedicated. And I doubt that SmackDown being on Tuesdays is really going to make that much of a difference to the people that are left watching TNA right now.
Yeah, the TNA fans are very much like the WWE fans in 1990, 1995 and then into 1990, 97, when WWE was getting killed in the ratings and people were still watching. The hardcore dedicated fans.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much all we've covered. I think we pretty much covered everything. Obviously, NoDQ.com will have updates regarding this and whatever further developments there are. And yeah, thank you for being on today, Jeff. And yeah, it's still pretty early. It's not even 9 o'clock in the morning here on the West Coast. This has been quite a day so far.
Yeah, I woke up and I checked my IM. There's a message from you, and then from Greg Cherry. I'm like, what is this? It's not even 7 people. What the hell? And I go online. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, my phone was just blown up at like 6 o'clock in the morning about all this. So yeah,
that's crazy.
Quite an interesting day. So that'll wrap it up for this video. NoDQ.com will have you covered with all the latest. Follow Jeff Meacham at _Jeff Meacham and at TW on No DQ. Is that correct?
EW on No DQ, yes, sir.
That's on Twitter, of course. Follow me at NoDQ, DOTCOM, or at Aaron Rift, and of course, Aaron Rift on Facebook. And that'll do it. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time.